Welcome, fellow recovering traditionalists, to episode 176, Avoiding the Trap of Algorithms. Welcome to Build Math Minds, the podcast, where fidelity to your students is greater than fidelity to your textbook. I'm your host, Christina Tonnevold, the recovering traditionalist and BuildMathMinds.com founder, where my mission is to change the way we teach elementary math to our kiddos. So, are you ready to start building math minds and not just creating calculators? Let's get started. Recently, I was asked if I'd like a preview copy of a new book coming out in 2025 in order to give a blurb of support that could potentially be included in promotions for the book. Now, before I talk about the book, I'm actually going to go a little off topic, kind of, because the last few days in my home life, the topic of mean girls and women not supporting women has come up multiple times. Then, as I started writing out this podcast, I realized that this episode is a wonderful example of women supporting women. Too often, women work to tear each other down, and unfortunately, it starts very early and is heavily seen in high school. When one female is excelling or seen as quote-unquote better in some way, other females see it as a threat and work to tear that female down instead of working to get themselves up. It is unfortunate, and it's even crazy to see that this behavior continues into adulthood. In fact, I bet you've seen it in your own life and possibly even in your school. If one teacher is excelling, i.e. their students are excelling, then instead of working to find ways to excel their students, often other teachers just badmouth that teacher and find ways to bring her down. Instead, we should be supporting that teacher and saying, "You are doing awesome. What are you doing? What's working with your students? And what can I learn from you?" The reason I bring this whole idea up is because the author of the book that I was asked if I'd like a copy of could be seen as a competitor of mine. She provides resources for teachers around math, just like me. She has a podcast, just like me. She has online courses for teachers, just like me. She has an online PD site for teachers, just like me. I could have declined the offer to review the book because I would view her as a quote-unquote competitor in business. But instead, I see her doing the same work as me, and I want to lift her up. We are doing a quote-unquote business that helps us pay bills, but we are both working towards the same goal of helping teachers understand how kids develop their math understanding. I could choose to believe that if teachers are learning from her, then they aren't learning from me, and therefore not want to promote her stuff. But instead, I choose to believe that A, teachers can learn from both of us. It's not an either-or situation. B, if they don't want to learn from me, for whatever reason, maybe they will learn from her. And C, who cares who teachers are learning from as long as they are learning and growing in their understanding of how children can build their math minds. My end goal is that children have a different experience around mathematics than I did. That mathematics actually makes sense to them and they enjoy it. So I don't care if you learn that from me or someone else. And if someone else has a way that resonates better with you, then I am all for it. In fact, on the show notes for this episode over at buildmathminds.com/176, I'm going to provide links to all of her stuff and none of mine. And so in the spirit of women supporting women, I am so pleased to introduce to you Pam Harris's new book, Developing Mathematical Reasoning, Avoiding the Trap of Algorithms. I can't give too much away from this book because it actually isn't published yet, and the copy I have might change a bit. However, it is open for pre-order, so I wanted to give you a little preview, plus Pam said that I could. So I want to get it out there and promote it as much as possible. I'll do more with her new book when it actually comes out in February, but if you are like me and you grew up inside the trap of traditional algorithms, then you need to go pre-order this book. I made it through school with good math grades because I was a good rule follower, and math was taught as a set of rules and procedures to follow, which is basically those algorithms. That's what we call the algorithm, is basically those procedures that we require kids to follow. And it wasn't until I was getting my master's degree that I learned I didn't know mathematics. I was just good at arithmetic and I was a good mimicker. I wish I would have been taught that way was something that I said so many times. And I've heard so many teachers say it. Once we see a different way to think about mathematics, it opens our world to a new way of thinking. We made it through school parroting back rules and procedures in math, but being able to do the algorithms only made it look like we knew math. However, doing and understanding what we are doing are two very different things. This book will build your own understanding of mathematics so that you can help your students avoid the trap of those algorithms and ensure that your students won't one day be saying, "I wish I would have been taught that way." There was a spot in Pam's book that I think gives us a sense of why we end up saying, "I wish I would have been taught this way." I can't tell you what page this is on because I just have the digital preview copy, but it is in chapter 3, The Trap of Addition and Subtraction Algorithms. And I'm only grabbing a small part of what Pam writes about the 3 traps. Here it is. Many of the traditional algorithms share these 3 general traps. 1, the less sophisticated reasoning trap. The trap of being able to use reasoning in a prior level and get correct answers. Therefore, never learning the reasoning that kind of problem could build and needs to build in order to then build on it. 2, the digit trap. The trap of treating numbers like lists of digits and therefore not grappling with the place values / magnitudes involved. 3, the false definition of math trap. The trap of believing the myth that mathing means mimicking. As a learner and then a traditional teacher, I was caught in these traps. And it wasn't until my eyes were open to a new way to view mathematics and the learning of mathematics that I was released from those traps. As I was being released, I saw myself gain more sophisticated reasoning and then striving for that with my students. I began to see the value of numbers and not just see them as symbols to manipulate. I began to see math as more than just following the steps and procedures. And that's when I began to say, I wish I would have been taught this way, and set about trying to make sure that my students never said that. If you want help along your journey of getting out of these 3 traps and ensuring your students don't fall into those traps, go pre-order Pam's new book and check out all of her resources. Pam is amazing to learn from and has so much passion that it is contagious. And let's remember to build each other up. When you see another female who is looking good, doing something good, or just being an awesome person, tell them. We all get a lot of people saying bad things about us all the time, so be a person who says the good things and lifts others up. I'll see you next week, my fellow recovering traditionalists.